Hello, welcome to Local Anesthetic Podcast, your injection of mind-numbing local news, weird, funny, sinister, crazy local news. Could we be living in any more of a crazy time than we are right now? Rob, what episode is this? Hi, Rob. What episode is it? I don't even know.
Hello. It is episode 345.
Episode 345. We're recording on September the 27th for anybody who cares. There's always a delay in when these episodes go out, to be honest. But Rob, let's get straight into it, Rob. So, hello everybody. Nice to see you. We hope to I feel like we are giving people the sanity, Rob, in insane times, which is mad because this podcast is inherently insane because of the nature of the stories we cover.
Yeah. Do you know what? There's been a lot of conversations I've had this week where people have been mentioning that they feel that they're living in a parallel universe, which is, I know, is something that we talk about on many, many occasions. And I really am thinking that this may have actually happened. I think it was after 2016. That for me is when the timeline skewed.
Well, I told you when I think it actually happened. I think it happened 1999 at the turn of the millennium, Y2K. The fear about that huge bug that actually did happen, and it caused this huge thing, but we're unaware of it. Maybe until now, Rob. But what I would say is that look, before we get on with this, we just need to say a few mentions. One is that for any of our listeners who don't know this already, maybe you've been late catching up on the news, we are now on Patreon. And what is Patreon? I don't really know how to describe it. It's a platform for people like podcasters and other artists to offer kind of membership subscriptions where you get extra content. So we're on there now, where you can sign up to become an LAPodcast, an extra jab patron, a member. It's £2 a month. And for that £2 a month, you get 2 bonus episodes of this podcast every month. And they're called LAPodcast, an extra jab. And we've had a few of our loyal listeners join up already. We've had one of our listeners very, very generously not only sign up, but also increase their membership fee every month completely voluntarily just to help support this podcast. And that listener, we don't want to embarrass you, but you know who you are. And you have always been an incredible contributor towards this podcast. And Rob and I were just so flattered and thankful for that. And we really, really appreciate it. So yeah, it's £2 a month. And we know, at the moment, with everything being a bit trying, every little bit of extra money. But if you can afford it and you want to do it, like I said, you just go to patreon.com/LAPodcast extra. That's patreon.com/LAPodcast extra. And there you just sign up. It's very simple. And those episodes will be delivered to you to either play on the Patreon website or you can copy the link into your podcast app. But they're great. And Rob and I think we said, because we've released if you sign up now, there's already how many episodes are there now on there, Rob?
There's 5 episodes up there now.
There's 5 episodes up there already. But we are for only one time only. We're not going to keep doing this because it wouldn't be fair to the Patreon subscribers. But we are going to release the first episode free on regular, for free on the regular podcast apps, just to give people a flavour, because it is slightly different as there's new music, slightly different format. But we'd love for people to hear it, and hopefully more people will sign up and become supporters of this podcast. It's weird. I'm just noticing on Zoom, Rob, there's this new feature that if I raise my hand, it tells me I'm raising my hand, and if I keep it up, it does it. And then what? And then isn't that amazing? That's very clever.
Mine doesn't do that.
Right. Okay.
Fucking cheap version of Zoom. Anyway, right, Alex, just a quick bit of news. Yes, this is exciting, by the way. This is a really significant bit of news. Thank you to Kyber who found this. Alex, John Mooner is a published author.
Right. Okay. But okay. What qualifies as a published author? Because I could self-publish a book right now and say I'm a published author. Similarly, I could write mad ramblings on a piece of loo roll and leave it on the street and technically say I'm a published author. There's my publication. Read it.
Well, he's got a book. You can buy it today on Amazon.
What?
It's called John Mooner's Bizarre Stories. Which I love.
How much is it on for the Kindle? Because I think we say we get it and we read extracts. Maybe on the Patreon episodes.
That's a great. It's only $3.99, which I think is an absolute bargain.
Should we give it?
I think we should invest. Yeah, I think we should absolutely invest. There's only one review on here, and it's only 5 stars. Do you want to hear the description of the book?
Can I hear the review as well?
You can
probably by John Mooner himself under a proxy
It might
account.
well be. Yeah, well, let me do the description. So, John Mooner's Bizarre Stories by John Mooner. A collection of short stories that are bizarre, funny, and downright strange, which sounds very close to our podcast description, but that's okay.
It really does.
Yeah. These amazing stories include ghosts, UFOs, aliens, Mothman, and other strange phenomena that cannot be explained. These strange occurrences have happened. I think there's a word missing there. These strange occurrences have happened, I'm guessing it was to John Mooner throughout the years. John Mooner's book also features stories that were told to the author by his granddad and are true events that took place throughout his life.
Who's it published by?
Well, that would be telling. I don't know.
I think it's one of those things you just set up yourself, yeah. Can you only buy it via ebook, or can you actually buy a paper copy?
That I haven't looked at, but yeah, let me have I mean, ebook would be the easiest, I think. I'll see if there is a paper copy as well.
I just doubt very much, because anybody can publish a Kindle book, so I think I suspect, let's see, maybe it'll be the next big hit.
Do you want to hear the review?
Yeah.
It's by Axel.
Which is an anagram of Alex, but it isn't me.
That's true. That's true. It was released this year, by the way. And the title of the review is Weird, Sexy, Funny, all rolled into one. And the review writes, thank you, Alex. I'll take that. Just bought this. It was so funny and weird and erotic at the same time. It's just what you want these days to escape from humanity. Some of the stories will blow your mind.
Right, that's definitely set that one up.
Yeah, maybe.
I reckon that's him. He also, because now he wants to be sexy. Sexy John Mooner.
I mean, what a great review, I have to say. So it's where is it? So funny, weird, and erotic all at the same time.
And if any of our listeners want to leave us a review on your podcast app, most have the facility, especially Apple Podcasts. Most people do listen to podcasts or Apple Podcasts. Any reviews you can leave for this podcast on that podcast app will help us immensely. Thank you very much. And we're more than happy to be called sexy.
Absolutely. On with the podcast.
On that note, Rob, I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago, and I wonder if you got the chance to listen to it, that I discovered that there was a podcast in the United States called The Local Podcast, hosted by two comedians who cover local news stories. Hasn't been running anywhere near as long as ours, but seemed to be a direct clone to some degree, American-style clone of this podcast. I mean, I was quite flattered, but a bit annoyed at the same time. But did you listen to it, Rob?
I haven't had the chance, no. Right, is it any good?
Well, they cover it. I noticed that they covered some of the stories that we cover.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They covered that story about the hot dog taking 36 minutes off your life. That was covered on the last episode of LAPodcast, An Extra Jab, I believe. Episode
it was indeed
5.
Yep.
What's the title of that? Do we know? What's the title of that podcast?
Oh, God.
1001 Erotic Nights.
That's right.
Very
yes.
Good. I loved that episode. I mean, I've loved all the Extra Jab episodes. But anyway, okay. So you're saying I can crack on, Rob?
Yes, please.
Let's talk about fuel now.
Do we have to?
We do, Rob. Oh, we do, Rob. Listen, I feel that I inadvertently, preemptively, maybe. I don't know if I foresaw this crisis. Do you remember a few months ago on the regular LA, I mentioned the last fuel crisis we had, which was at the time of David Cameron's administration, and there was a energy minister called Francis Maude, who was a senior Tory, been around the block for a number of years. And I told you that story about when people were queuing around the block for petrol and everything. They wheeled him out on TV, and he gave the now infamous advice to people that there was no need to panic, no need to worry. But if they were worried, and how he said it was this: if you're at all worried, then put a bit of fuel in a jerry can and store it in the garage. And swiftly had to be corrected by many other ministers saying, no, please don't do that. That's quite dangerous. We don't want you filling up jerry cans at the petrol station. But this is a situation we're in now, Rob. As somebody said on Twitter, and I very much enjoyed it, and I might like it as an episode title, we are now in, Rob, categorically, we are now in the post-Brexit Wild West.
Yes, we absolutely are. Yeah.
And if you don't believe me, I encourage people to go onto Twitter and look up the fights that have been happening at petrol station forecourts. I was watching this morning a full-blown major-scale punch-up at a BP garage out on the forecourt late at night. Grown men fighting like babies in the most degrading manner possible, Rob. It reminded me of the bare-knuckle barnyard fighting that goes on at the Bernard Matthews farm that we've talked about many times. It was like that.
That's good to know. I mean,
it's quite erotic at the same time. I mean, I'll be honest.
Well, of course, that goes without saying. So Sarah is a member of a Facebook group, like a Bishop Stortford.
I thought you was going to say she's a member of a petrol station enthusiast club.
No. And apparently there was a mother on there. This is a mother's group, Alex. This is a mother's group who actually took to this mother's group and said, if anyone wants any petrol, I've got 9 cans of it in my garage. She'd literally gone to the petrol station that morning and was selling jerry cans of petrol.
What is wrong with people, Rob?
I know, Alex, I wish I knew. Can I also, before we move on...
How are you doing for petrol?
I think we're doing okay, actually, thankfully. Sarah filled up this morning. But to be fair...
Oh, did she? Where did she find to do that?
The Tesco's at Bishop Stortford apparently had a very small queue, but to be fair to us, we did actually need petrol. We weren't stockpile like all the other cunts.
But in London, and like, they're all closed, Rob, or they say no fuel.
So I'm led to believe, yeah. Alex, I own the home counties. We have the reserves. That's all I can say, you know.
Mm.
Can I also, I think I just want to make a very, because obviously we are recording this during the Labour Party conference, and I'd just like to say in regards to her name's just gone completely out of my head.
Angela Rayner.
Thank you. Yes, I agree with her comments.
What, the Tory party are scum?
Yes, yeah. I think to expand on that, I think Etonian, homophobic, racist scum. I think all those comments completely justified.
I don't think that applies to every MP, definitely not. But I do think that your leadership it applies to.
Well, I think her comments seem to be directed more or less at Boris himself as opposed to every.
Yeah,
so
of course,
in that respect, true.
Right, Rob, well, let's get on to the fuel. I mean, you probably would have heard about this already, but I'd like to just mention it. What's in a name? This is from The Guardian. I'm sure you will have heard about this. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Saturday, 25th of September. This was covered everywhere. So, like when news outlets, Rob... this is by Jedediah Ote on the 25th of September in The Guardian. In the traitorous Guardian. You know how like news outlets will send a roving reporter out to a situation that's ongoing. So in this case, you've got your BBC reporter whose task is to stand outside petrol forecourts and report what's going on.
Mm.
Do you know what I'm about to say? Did you hear this?
No, I don't think I did. No.
Right, so the guy they sent out to do it, which everybody noticed on Twitter. So reporting from a BP petrol station in Stockport, which had run out of petrol, people were quick to point out that he was clearly the best man for the job because his name, Rob, the BBC reporter's name was Phil McCann.
Amazing.
Yes, Phil McCann, which is meant to sound and does sound like Phil My Can. Phil McCann soon became trending on Twitter with one social media user saying, Phil McCann on a fuel shortage story, The Simpsons couldn't have written anything funnier than that. Well played, BBC Breakfast. Another said, there's only one BBC reporter to do the story of panic buying of fuel, and it's Phil McCann. Another person on Twitter pointed out that McCann was now part of a special club of other reporters. So the ones we've got here are Sarah Blizzard, who reports on the weather.
Lovely.
When BBC News interviewed a man called Andrew Drinkwater, who works at a water research centre. And I think my favourite was an interview with a policeman at the Avon and Somerset Police who was called PC Rob Banks.
Nice. Really fittingly, and I have got a story, but I'm not entirely sure we'll be able to fit in today, with and I really thought this was a joke. His name is Lieutenant Pat Down. Absolutely true. Or actually, it's Lieutenant Pat Down. I'm not sure if that was a typo, but yeah.
Maybe not. But anyway, Rob, I want to continue, my friend, on the subject of fuel. I don't believe you will have seen this yet. I hope I've got in there first. In fact, you can't have seen it because when I mentioned fuel, you sort of sighed. But had you known this story, you would not have sighed. This is from the Daily Mirror, our prerequisite story, our obligatory story indeed from the Daily Mirror nowadays.
Yep.
It's by... So Rob, this is such a good story that it had to be covered by written by not one, not two, Rob, but 3 journalists accredited with this story in the Mirror. And they are Tom Campbell, Chris Britcher, and Milo Boyd. And it's from yesterday, the 26th of September.
I'm expecting like an exceptional level of detail. There was 3 journalists sent to report on this story.
I'm not sure there will be, Rob, but I think I'm just going to have to read you the headline, which will give the story away, but it's the detail as well. Fuel campaigners' home besieged after pranksters turn it into petrol station online.
Oh, yes. I think I remember seeing this on Twitter. Yeah, I didn't read the story, but yes.
So a fuel campaigner's home has been besieged by drivers after pranksters turned it into a Shell garage on Google Maps.
That's absolutely brilliant.
Isn't it? You've got to love that even when we're in these crises, the British public finds some way of just making something completely comical out of it. Howard Cox...
It's so ingenious.
It is. Well, Howard Cox is the public face of a campaign calling for lower fuel prices against the proliferation of electric cars, and he received more than 70 calls from motorists on the hunt for fuel. Can I just say lower fuel prices and against the proliferation. Can I say against the proliferation of electric cars? I love that as an episode title. It's just nice.
Yeah, it is. I agree.
So he's received more than 70 calls from motorists who are on the hunt for fuel. The Joker's registered his home address in Kent on Google and marked it up as a Shell garage, complete with a picture of a forecourt and a review. Mr. Cox, who fronts Fairfuel UK, said, "I got home the night before last and this bloke asked if I had any petrol there." I was like, what? It sounds funny, but when you get 70 calls, it makes you annoyed. I've done lots of media...
Brilliant.
I've done lots of media appearances recently about the petrol crisis, so my name is out there and some idiot has gone out there thinking it's funny. It's not funny at all. You just don't do that sort of thing. It's probably a militant environmentalist or militant cyclist. It's those sort of people who do this sort of thing. Can I just say... if there's any way we can shoehorn the phrase militant environmentalist or militant cyclist in there. I like the phrase militant cyclist. Do you?
Militant cyclist is brilliant. It's quite evocative, I feel.
It is. Fairfuel UK has long campaigned for lower prices for UK motorists at the pump, as well as against schemes to improve public health, such as clean air zones and congestion charges. So he's on the right side of history, I think.
Yeah, down with those. Down with those clean air. Fucking idiot.
Well, hang on a minute, Rob. The group advocates
for that clean air, keeping our kids healthy.
The group advocates for the widespread use of fuel catalysts instead, despite little evidence they work. Cutting emissions from petrol and diesel vehicles is crucial when it comes to tackling the effects of climate change. With 27% of the UK's emissions coming from transport, by the way, they've missed out the E from emissions, so nice to see those 3 journalists proofread this article. Not one of them spotted that.
Not surprised.
It's not the first time Mr. Cox has been targeted for his activism. He explained. He explained, "I've had feces through the door wrapped up in a cycle glove." Things like that.
Again, ingenious.
Is there an episode title there? Feces through the door wrapped in a cycle glove?
That is the episode title, without a doubt.
I've been subjected to a lot of this, and all I'm trying to do is help UK drivers get a better deal. A lack of HGV drivers forced a number of petrol stations around the country to close earlier this week, sparking panic. Pictures have been shared showing long queues and people filling up jerry cans. You know, there's a guy on the radio this morning on LBC who was saying that in London, he drove 4 hours trying to go every petrol station he could find in London, and they were all closed or had no fuel. He said the motorway on the way down to London was the same thing. And it was like, it did make you realise, like, why aren't they just getting the army to come in and deal with this now? There's no point saying to people, don't panic. It's like the run on the banks when the run on Northern Rock happened. Once it started, it actually isn't that irrational to go out and do it because everybody else is doing it and you could be the one left at the back of the queue. I mean, you can't just say to people, don't panic, in the words of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and expect it to work.
But also, I hate to say it, I mean, there must be a shortage of fuel. I mean, because if they haven't... There
isn't, just a shortage of drivers, apparently.
Well, but logistically, sure, that means there is also a shortage of fuel, because if they physically can't move the fuel from one place to another, that must mean there's a shortage.
Mr. Cox does not believe that government plans to offer thousands of visas to overseas lorry drivers will, in quotes, even touch the sides, and does not think the problem will be short-lived. He explained, the scaremongering by Grant Shapps saying don't panic is obviously going to create panic. We know that from the toilet roll problems during COVID. I think it will still be pretty bad for a couple of days, but in 3 or 4 days everything will be back to normal. Petrol and diesel are in full supply. It's just the driver shortage. There are some comments.
This really is a wretched little island, isn't it? Sorry.
Did you know, Rob, that Prince Andrew is to sell his £17 million chalet amid legal battle with French socialite? Did you know that?
Well, I mean, Alex, he's not going to need it where he's going.
Apparently, they were sued by former owner Isabelle de Rouvre over the £6.6 million she claimed they still owed her after reportedly missing their final payment. Now, Rob, you just made a remark there which didn't go unnoticed. I don't think, Rob, that we want to get on the wrong side of the royal family. Not considering what happened to Diana, which I realised could have put us in even more. I mean, what happened to her was an unfortunate accident, of course. What I'm trying to say is that. Have you got a story for us there, Rob?
Yeah. So.
Okay, Rob. Genuinely, do you have a story for us there? By the way, I don't know if you heard, Rob, because it was the way I said it there. I sounded a bit Alan Partridge. Did you know, Rob, that Steve Coogan is going to be playing none other? Prepare yourself.
Than Jimmy Savile.
Jimmy
yes,
Savile.
I did, yes.
And that is weird because Alan Partridge, in role as Alan Partridge, he's made quite a few remarks about Savile, as you know. My favourite was on Mid Morning Matters, I think it was, when he talked about the that Savile used to do, and he said if you slow it down, it sounds like a siren. It's almost like Jimmy Savile was trying to warn people that he was a monster.
Yes, yeah. I enjoyed because I happened to read that headline. By the way, I'm very conscious that there's a massive sun glare. Looks like I'm being possibly raptured. This
it does look like you're the second coming right now.
Yeah, well, I've always.
Can you just turn the blinds a bit or not?
The blinds are closed. Right. I think it's because
cheap blinds there.
Well, yeah. So I think it's just that it's we're in autumn now. It's the mid-afternoon sunset.
This is insane.
I know.
Could you just move your tablet screen slightly or something?
Oh, there's nothing here. That's
your screen. Your screen.
My screen is here.
I'm looking at
it's on the other side. Oh, hang on.
Oh,
no. I think
there you go.
Is that any better?
That's better.
Okay.
A bit. It looks like a meteor is approaching you and about to wipe you out, but never mind.
Well, that might be a blessing. Right. So, if you remember the last episode, I think it was Kyber submitted a new craze whereby people have been Googling their date of birth and Florida man stories. Do you remember me mentioning this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I decided to do exactly the same and go on to Google, type in my birthday, so the 21st of February, along with Florida man. And I have.
Should I do this next episode?
I think you should, yeah, because it's quite entertaining. So this is from the Riverfront News, which covers St. Louis. Excuse me. It goes back a bit. So it's the 21st of February 2019. So it's 2 years old, but I thought we'll give it a pass because it's a good story. It's by Doyle Murphy, and the headline.
What a great name.
I mean, he couldn't be any more Irish, could he? Doyle Murphy.
I was about to say, I detect Irish heritage. That's just a feeling.
Yeah. So the headline, Florida man who threw toilets through window in East St. Louis found with second crapper.
Well, you would hope he had a second. You'd hope he had his own toilet. I mean, yeah, okay.
Well, exactly, Alex. You should never be throwing your own toilet through a window. It's never going to end well. So, an alleged toilet chucker from Florida is facing a felony charge after flinging an old crapper through the window of an East St. Louis school board's headquarters, authorities say.
I felt like there could have been an episode title in there, but I'm not sure.
Quite possibly. I do like an alleged toilet chucker. So, police were called to the scene on February 15th. Their officers were told that a man carrying the commode up to the building and launched it through the front glass before sprinting away.
Right, so he
was seen.
Is he a disgruntled former pupil? Do we think?
I don't think it actually says. No, it isn't. There's no indication. It's quite a short story, unfortunately. So officers later found 36-year-old Dave Tolliver about a block away at the corner of 11th Street and Cleveland Avenue. They are pretty sure they have the right guy. He was sitting on a second-old toilet, police say.
Right, so what was that? Was that ready for vandalism as well?
Quite possibly, yeah.
Who sits on a toilet in the middle of a road? I mean, actually, Rob, can I just tell you something very, very quickly? I was out the other day in West Wickham sort of area.
Okay.
And there was a man. I had to stop. Again, I thought I've now actually literally entered an alternate timeline. There was a man driving down I was going to say sidewalk there, down the pavement on, the, what they call mobility scooter sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a mobility scooter. It was what I can only describe. It's very hard to describe this, Rob. I literally stood there. I thought this has to be a dream. He was driving what can only be described as something that had been put together at home, right? But yet had an engine and wheels. It looked like a kind of, the Jawa sandcrawler from A New Hope that the Jawas were in. It kind of looked like that. Right. Not that big, obviously, because he was driving it at the front. It looked like it was made out of sort of cardboard and tin foil.
Wow.
And he was carrying 10 bottles of water on the top of it. And he sort of it was going, it literally must have been going. People were walking faster than him. So people were overtaking at walking pace. And it was sort of trundling down the road back and front. And then I noticed as it went into a Maudsley NHS Trust campus, which of course I believe is for the
for mental health difficulties.
Unwell.
Yeah.
It was quite the sight, Rob. It looked like a sort of a cheap prop that had been made for Red Dwarf.
I mean, Alex, you never know. It might have been. I mean, a few weeks ago, I told you that I was pacing my fence and a guy rode past on a penny farthing. All bets are off.
What more did you need, Rob, to tell you that it's a Truman Show Matrix style situation? You're on camera right now, Rob.
Well, yeah, but I have to be for this podcast, apparently. Well, Alex, look, let's move on to my second story. Unfortunately, it's also from the Mirror. I know we've had our obligatory Daily Mirror serving for this week, but here's another one.
Through the looking glass, Rob.
Yes, it's by Kate Buck from the 23rd of September, and the headline: man accused of having sex with horse escapes jail, but only makes it a mile.
Pity he didn't still have the horse, because he would have made it a lot further.
Well, I mean, it depends what he'd done to the horse. So
the horse couldn't even walk afterwards.
He's walking like a cowboy. Is that the phrase?
Walking like a buckled foal. Is that a phrase?
God. Well, it is now. So a man accused of having sex with a horse escaped from prison, but only got a mile away after being caught.
Oh, I love this story already. Where the fuck did this happen?
This was in Colorado in the US.
Right.
So Jonah Barrett Lesko, 25, was being held at La Plata County Jail, Colorado in the US, where he is said to climb over a wall before bolting towards the nearby Animas River in Durango. There's a video.
Sorry, where was this?
It's in Colorado.
I've been to Colorado, right? Colorado is obviously an incredibly developed, major, American state. How did this wall? The walls in American prisons are not scalable. What do you mean he scaled the wall?
Well, now I mentioned before.
Rob, I cannot see you. I can't see anything.
Alex, I can't do anything. They can't move anywhere.
Can't you sit in front of the glare? Can you move your chair so that the sun is hitting your back? Oh, there you go.
Is that going to work? No, that's not high enough. Hang on a second.
Oh, very clever. Rob has put up a nice sort of blanket with a picture of a sort of cat face on it, cartoon picture of a cat sort of thing. Well done. Nice.
Thanks. Right. So, as I mentioned before, he's a sheriff's lieutenant. So, sheriff's lieutenant Pat Downs. Now, I'm pretty sure it's Pat Downs, and it may be Pat Downs, but that seems strange to me. But he says, So there's a video of him going at the wall and using his feet on one side and his back on the other. So if you can imagine, he's obviously got his back to the wall in like an L shape and is basically using his feet to inch his way up. Does that make sense?
But that's genius and would require some real core strength. Do you think that he's practicing that in his room?
Quite possibly. I mean, Alex, I wouldn't call a man who has sex with a horse a genius, but you never know.
It could be, Rob. He might know what we don't, that humanity is about to end and we need a new race of horse people.
Unfortunately, he was only out of the prison for 26
Rob just let
minutes.
that go. Sorry, go on.
I just don't want to think about horse people, Alex. He was only out of the prison for 26 minutes when the call was made. He was caught by Durango Police Chief Bob Brammer, who just happened to be driving by the area.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it is, yeah. By the time he caught up with Barrett Lesko, he had stripped off his prison-issued jumpsuit as he was attempting to transverse the river in only his pants. So I think that's why he was picked up, because he was virtually naked at the time.
Never a good look. Can I say, this guy, that day, he was having a right mare.
Oh, very good. Brilliant.
Can I just say, Rob, you said you didn't want to hear about horse people, but stop, Rob. Look at me for 1 second. You said you don't want to hear about horse people. I said he could be predicting the end of the world. Horsemen. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Maybe this man is the first. This happens, it's going to lead to a cascading of events, Rob.
I thought you were implying he was trying to stop it by having sex with numerous horses.
And that. Yeah.
But then, the 4 horsemen could probably just walk. So, yeah, obviously he was detained by Brammer and returned to the prison. So Barrett Lesko was arrested in June on suspicion of having intercourse with a horse on June 17th at the La Plata County Fairground.
Sorry, what? At a fairground?
Yeah, at the fairground. Yeah, well, Alex, I don't want to disparage good people in Colorado, but I would think that's probably some sort of attraction.
No, Colorado's like legalized cannabis. They're very sort of progressive. They're not one of the kind of Trump supporting state sort of places. So this surprises me. I'm not suggesting Trump supporters all shag horses, but I think a fair percentage.
Alex, maybe they've gone one step too far. Maybe they've legalized cannabis and realized that maybe the love between a man and his horse is actually okay.
Rob, is it possible that the sex with the horse was one of the fairground attractions?
Well, that's what I was trying to allude to, Alex. I think there was, you've got your candy floss stalls, you've got your shooting stalls, that kind of thing.
They blindfold, right? So this is how it works. You get blindfolded, Rob.
Yep.
And a horse is, was it a female horse or a male horse? Do we know?
Surprisingly, Alex, it doesn't say.
So let's pretend it's a female horse. And erect, he stands behind her blindfolded, and rather like pin your tail on the donkey, here he's got to insert himself in the horse, but without a visual guide. You get one attempt. If you get it in, you win the prize. I don't know what that is. Prison.
Yeah. Prison, where you can have all the sex he likes for free. Unfortunately, while she's on bail, he was arrested on suspicion of several burglaries, including stealing 6 bikes.
Not buggeries.
No, it does say burglaries. Breaking into a parked car and shoplifting. There's that as well. And,
that's a right bender, that is, isn't it? Shag a horse, shoplift, break into a car. That's a night out, Rob. In many areas of
Alex.
In the north of England, that is just a regular Sunday afternoon. I mean, in certain areas, I will say that.
So I'm led to believe.
Okay, Rob, I have a confession to make. It is time for our listener story of the week, but I am without the purple rod. I still have not been able to locate it, which is crazy because it can't have gone anywhere unless somebody has broken into the house and stolen it. Maybe a fellow recorderist, one of my competitors, Rob, who wishes to do me ill. So for now, Rob, and for Lyra, because I know that we were doing these really in honour of her so she can listen to them back at one stage in her life, I will now attempt to imitate one of my recordings with using only the sound of my voice.
Alex, this really isn't necessary.
Pray silence, please, Rob. Sorry, excuse me.
Can you get on with it, please?
Okay, it is time. Was that better than... I mean, I think it was up there.
I don't know how you compare two things that are just abjectly poor.
Is abjectly poor a compliment? Sounds fancy. I'll take it.
If you need it to be.
Right, Rob, who's the story from this week?
So this week it is from Steve. No, it's not. It's from Kyber. I do apologise. I just lost my brain there for a second. Anyway, it is from the 7th of August by John James.
Nice name.
Who's the reporter? Two different guys. Yeah, it seems quite official. John James. I like it. Obviously, his parents were struggling for names.
He can't really do the whole James Bond thing. The name's Bond, James Bond, because he'd go, the name's James. And you go, hi, James. No, wait, John James.
It almost sounds like maybe he's forgotten what his name is and was correcting himself. No, sorry, no, it's James. John James. No,
James.
Whatever. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Anyway, so this is from the My London website, which for people who don't know is a London-centric website that covers London papers. So it's a lot like the
people aren't stupid, Rob. What else do you think they're going to think it is?
Well, what I was about to say is it's like the live websites across the country. It's the same. It's exactly the same format.
I see.
Headline: Police were called to Finsbury Park hoax call amid false rumours that poisonous snakes were released.
Where was this? Finsbury Park where?
A station.
Poisonous snakes. Snakes on a train.
Yeah, snakes on a train. Or numerous snakes on numerous trains.
Yeah.
So claims that as many as 70 poisonous snakes have been released into Finsbury Park area were dispelled by police who were called to a hoax in Seven Sisters Road.
I wonder if this is the same guys responsible for turning that guy's house into a fictitious petrol forecourt.
Quite possibly, yeah. So officers were called to a busy road shortly after 8 p.m. on Friday, August 6th, when they carried out their inquiries before reopening it after an hour. Speaking to My London, the Met Police confirmed that activities related to an undisclosed hoax call. A spokesman for the police said police were called by the London Ambulance Service around 1948 on Friday, following concerns for welfare residents at a nearby address. Emergency services attended, but no one was injured. At the moment, the incident has been treated as a hoax call. Meanwhile, rumours as to why the road was closed were running rife on social media, leading to a bizarre claim that 70 poisonous snakes have been released into Finsbury Park.
So sorry, how did the rumour... So I'm confused. How did the rumour start then? What was the first rumour?
So I think what happened was that obviously the LAS, the London Ambulance Service, had called the police to a rumour of something happening, but the police obviously didn't say what this rumour was. And then I think social media kicked in and just started spouting all the shit about what the rumours could be.
So somebody just thought, what's the silliest thing I can say? 70 poisonous snakes.
Yeah.
But you know, Rob, it's very apocalyptic, isn't it? It's the kind of thing you would have read about in Revelations. 70 poisonous snakes who will inflict damage on mankind.
See, that seems to be, that seems to be one of the plagues that could lay the path for the four horsemen to me.
Yeah, we've got the man having the sex with the horse. We've got 70 poisonous snakes being released at Finsbury Park. And we've got the fuel shortage, which, you know, by any measure is a catastrophe.
Alex, with the fuel shortage, at some stage, things will just grind to a halt. Cars will stop moving. Well, I mean, trains most of them are electric these days, so they'll probably keep going. But planes will stop flying. We'll be isolated in this godforsaken island.
But it's food, though, Rob. It's interesting you talk about this, right? I read a very good article in The Guardian the other day about black swan events. So obviously a black swan is very rare. Mm-hmm. So black swan events are rare events that people try and model and predict for because by their nature, they're unpredictable. They're like the pandemic. Right. Or they're like an asteroid hitting the Earth. Or they're like sudden, collapse in the banking market or fuel shortage or whatever. But apparently one of the problems with these is that governments aren't very good at predicting them because they mainly focus on the short term. But also that the problem with black swan events is that it can quickly lead to a cascading effect. So one black swan event can quickly lead to another one. Do you see? So a fuel shortage could suddenly lead to a major lack of food, and then can lead to civil unrest. And all these black swan events would happen very quickly, one after another. Before you've got it, all the dominoes have fallen. You've got nothing left, Rob. We could be in the end times.
Are you saying, Alex? Yeah, it seems to be you're alluding to the fact that by the time we release the next episode of LA Podcast, society could have broken down as we know it.
Yeah, but we will keep going, Rob. By the way, is that T-shirt green? I've been meaning to ask you the entire podcast. Is it green? I mean, is it a dark shade of green? Is it like
just talking about tangents? We were having a conversation about the possible end of civilization as we know it, and you. Then,
that's how blasé I am about it now, Rob. I said on this podcast a long time ago, quote, and I will go down and say this will be the quote attributed to my name. Nothing gets better from here on in. Didn't I say that? So far,
you did say that.
It has been true. Is that a dark green T-shirt, pine green?
Yes, it is.
Where did you get it? It's quite a nice colour.
Thank you. It's from H&M.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. I bought it myself.
Good.
It wasn't on offer.
Is that the end of this story?
It feels like it.
Thanks, Kyver. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with another regular episode of LA Podcast. We can be found on our website, lapodcast.net. We're on Patreon now, of course, patreon.com/LA Podcast Extra for £2 a month. As Rob always says, price of a cup of coffee less nowadays, I don't know. You can get extra bonus content into your inbox every month, so do sign up there and get the LA Podcast and Extra Jab bonus episodes. Patreon.com/LA Podcast Extra. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LA Podcast. We're on Twitter @LA Podcast. We're on Spotify, of all places. There too. Please leave us a review on your podcast apps if you could find the time. We'd really appreciate that. But do sign up to Patreon. But we're going to release that. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. We look forward with a mixture of eager anticipation yet trepidation to our next episode as we move ever more forward, like the snail's pace of grinding forward in traffic trying to get fuel put into your car, unless you're fortunate enough to live in Bishop's Stortford, where apparently you can just pop into your local Tesco and fill up your tank. Anyway, our next LA Podcast Extra will be released a week after this one comes out. It'll be episode 6. What are the kind of stories I'm going to be covering? I won't put you on the spot now, Rob, but I am going to cover, I'll just tell you one which will be worth you signing up and listening to. You've got to hear Rob and I's discussion about a teenager, his penis, and a USB cable. That is all I will say, and I will leave it there. Thank you very much, everybody. We've really enjoyed your company as always. God bless.
And keep it local.